Here are some basic steps to delegating well. First, be clear about which tasks you should be delegating. Second, choose the right person for the task. Match their natural area of strength to whatever it is you're trying to delegate. Third, give instructions and define results. And fourth, set up a clear feedback loop. It's really not complicated, is it? Be clear about which tasks you should be delegating. While the leader has many jobs, there are some jobs that only the leader can do. And if you don't do these tasks, they simply won't get done. For instance, nobody on your team is going to have a difficult conversation with an underperformer. If you don't do it, it's probably just not going to happen. No one on your team is going to let a person go. If you don't do it, it's not going to happen. And there are other jobs like that too, that if the leader doesn't do them, they're simply not going to get done. So you need to be clear about which tasks you should be delegating and which you should be holding on to. There's a spectrum to delegation, and you have to decide where you want to fall on that spectrum. So let's say, for example, you take a junior role or a technical role, you love it and you want to stay in that role. Well, it's going to be mostly hands-on work. If you are the best mechanic in the shop, well, it's going to be mostly you're doing the work, not delegating. Or let's say you're a medical specialist and you've got a unique specialty that takes training, like let's say radiology or something like that. Well, it's going to mean that most of your time is spent doing that technical job, and you're not going to have to worry about delegation all that much. And you know what? You won't have the hassle of dealing with people as much, and it's not for everybody. So that's okay. You're not really in a leadership role. Or you can choose to move towards the spectrum of being in leadership. And if you're in a more senior role, it can be up to 100% delegation, where most of what you're doing is coaching people and giving away jobs and helping empower and see people grow so that they can rise up in the organization. And that's not for everyone either. So you need to decide, where do you want to be on that spectrum? It's a choice. Which direction do you want to go? Because if you want to move into more leadership roles, you're going to obviously have to get good at delegation, because it requires a lot more coaching and training and people development. If you want to stay in a technical role, you're not going to have to worry about as much. Here are some sample tasks that fall into that team leader area of the spectrum. Visioning, strategizing, and goal setting. If you're not doing that for the team, it's probably not getting done. Giving regular feedback to staff. It's unlikely that lateral colleagues are going to sit down with each other and say, hey, here's where you need to grow. Here's your career trajectory. It doesn't happen, right? Finding great new people for your team. It's not that you're the only one that can do it, but if you're not driving that process, it's probably not going to happen. Disciplining and firing people. I can almost 100% guarantee that no one is going to be eager to step into that role as a team member. They're going to look to you to do that, to intervene with those underperformers or with those difficult people situations. That falls squarely in the leader's lap. Or training and coaching. That's your job as the team leader. And it's specifically a team leader job. It's not that you have to do it all, but you've got to initiate that process. And if you don't, it's probably not going to happen. And here are a few more sample team leader tasks. Mediating disputes and managing conflict. You know what? If you don't do that, it's probably not going to get done. Staying on track using budget numbers. Listening to staff and noticing issues. Leaders are observant and they just notice, hey, what's going on with that person? Are they fully engaged? Is something happening? The leader does that. And connecting with major clients. Team leader tasks focus on giving the business shape and direction. The team leader tasks will typically never just get done by team members. No one is going to step up and fire people or set goals for the team. That's the team leader who does that. And leaders have to be intentionally thinking about these team leader tasks, or they won't get done.
You need to know that team members think differently than team members, or at least than team members should think. They think differently, certainly, than how owners think. So here's what occupies the thinking of a typical team member. Doesn't mean they're bad, this is just what they think about. They think about their workspace. They think about their compensation. They think about their holiday time. They think about their title. They think about their recognition, or maybe lack of it. They think about their bonus. They think about their coworkers. Are they good? Are they bad? They think about their work tools. Do they have a better computer? Did they upgrade their laptop? What kind of a phone are they using? Now, what's the common thing that all of them are thinking about? They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their recognition. They're thinking about their bonus, their coworkers, their work tools. They're thinking about themselves. Again, it doesn't mean they're bad people. That's how we've trained them to think because they don't necessarily see the whole ice. In the game of hockey, you can just see your one position or you can see the whole game going on and they don't necessarily see the whole game. And again, that's our bad because we have not delegated to them and we haven't helped them see that whole game. Now, here's what typically occupies the mind of a leader or an owner. They're thinking about things like profitability, sustainability, the competition and competitive threats, finding great new people, dealing with difficult and problem people, taking that home at night probably thinking, how am I going to deal with that person? Setting the organization up to prosper in the future and finding new clients and retaining old ones. You see, leaders are thinking about the organization. Team members are wired to think about themselves. And we want to bridge that gap through delegation so that they can start to see the whole game and how the whole game is played, and they can start to have the whole organization in mind.
And the difference in thinking, of course, is obvious. Team members tend to think about themselves, while team leaders tend to think about the good of the organization. And it doesn't mean that team members are evil. That's just how they're incentivized to think. So let's say you're hiring someone in accounts payable. Well, it's not even on their radar. They're not on the planet of thinking, how do I attract better people? What are our competitive threats? That's not what they're paid to do. But what does matter to them is, am I sitting by a window or am I sitting by a bathroom? What is the person in the cubicle next to me like? Are they a decent person? So that's what they're incentivized to think like, whereas a team leader is incentivized to think about profit and sustainability and competition and problem people and great people and all those sorts of things that we just discussed. They're incentivized to think differently. Neither is evil. But of course, we want team members to start thinking like team leaders. You see, delegation helps bridge that gap. Think of it as if you were the captain of a tall ship, a sailing ship. So you're up in the wheelhouse and you can see everything that's going on. You're wondering if you're getting to your destination. You're wondering if there are enemies on the horizon. You're wondering what the weather is going to be like, how it's going to affect the ship. But think of some of your team members as people working below decks. They never get to see those things. They never even think about what the weather is going to be like or how it's going to affect them or if we're on track or, what our latitude and longitude is. They don't think of those things. So as the leader, you want to bridge that gap by allowing team members to take on more responsibility and encourage them to think like you do, to think like true leaders do. So delegation bridges that gap and it helps them to start to think differently and pull them out of their team member mindset and pull them into a team leader mindset and help you shoulder some of the burden. See? Now, what if you're the leader and you dislike performing the team leader tasks? Well, if the leader hates doing all of the team leader tasks, you've got to consider maybe you're in the wrong seat. So when I put up that list of here's what team leaders tend to focus on, and you look at that entire list and you say, man, every one of those things makes me feel ill, then you should consider if you really want to be in that leadership seat. Maybe you should consider being in a more technical role and become a specialist somewhere so you don't have to do those delegation activities. But I'll also say, very few team leaders enjoy all of those team leader tasks, and some can be delegated so that you can be even more effective. What team leader enjoys firing somebody? What team leader enjoys intervening and having difficult conversations with people? Let me encourage you that you can get better at those tasks. Some you can delegate, and some you can get better with practice and better by following a process. When you're looking at delegation, you should also ask, what stage is the business at? Because the stage of the business requires different styles of leadership from the leader. When the business is small, you delegate your weakness. When it's large, you delegate your strength. So let me explain. When the business is small, you want to give away everything that you're bad at so that you can maximize your strength because you need to be the main contributor on the team. But as the business grows and it's large, you need to delegate away your strength because you really hold the business for ransom by being the only person who can do a particular thing in the business. So let's say you're the best salesperson on the whole team. Well, you need to start to delegate away that strength because what if you didn't show up one morning? What would happen to that team? Maybe you're the only person who has contact with major clients or understands strategy. Well, if it's large, you need to start to delegate away those strengths So you have to ask yourself, what stage are we at and what should I be delegating based on that? You also need to ask, based on our stage, what are the top up to 3 activities that you should be obsessing over? Now, I'm not saying focused on, I'm saying obsessing over. What are the things that should consume your mind when you come in the morning and you say, these are my top 3 priorities, the top 3 things that I must be amazing at and I need to delegate away the rest? What are those things for you? You need to get focused so that you can make your maximum impact. We're all really good at 2 or 3 things, and we're weak at many other things. I know for myself, in my case, I'm pretty good at a couple of things, and I'm really not very good to very bad at a whole bunch of other things. And I think that describes a lot of us. We're good at 2 or 3 things, and those things represent your highest level of contribution to the organization. So to make a difference, you should be focused only on the things that you do best. I think of it as the magnifying glass. So remember when you were a kid and you took a magnifying glass and you put it on a piece of paper and you focused the sun so that it focused into a narrow little beam on the paper? Well, you can do 2 things with that beam. You can move it all over the paper so that the magnifying glass kind of warms up all the parts of the paper, or you can focus it on one area long enough that it turns into smoke and then it turns into fire. But many of us don't really focus that magnifying glass beam, and so we don't really get anywhere because we don't focus it long enough to really make an impact. So I'm just saying get focused so that beam turns into smoke and then fire rather than just warms everything up generally. You really want to make an impact by using your best skills most of the time. Delegation helps you get focused. Most senior leaders have more to do than is possible to ever get done. In fact, a lot more. I read a study that said that most senior leaders have 300 hours worth of projects on their desks that they could do at any given time, more than they could ever accomplish. So in order to have time to do your leadership jobs, you're going to have to give away or delegate other jobs, or you're just not going to get them done. Without delegation, you'll never achieve the level of focus that you need in order to be outstanding. You'll always be mediocre. You'll always be that magnifying glass that is pointing at every different area of the paper, kind of keeping everything warm, but never really making any fire. Here's a secret of outstanding people. They tend to be specialists, not generalists. They do only a handful of activities and they do them really, really well. In my work, I work with companies that are in fast growth. And so I work with leaders who have a lot ticking upstairs. And virtually everyone I work with, in fact, I'm going to say everyone I work with is more successful than me. I'm like an Olympic coach. Everyone that I work with is a better athlete than I am. But one thing that I've learned about all of them, and I do mean all of them, is that they have learned to spend the majority of their day on things that they're really, really good at doing. We all have things that we don't like to do and we'd rather not doing. But the bulk of their day is spent on doing those activities that they're really, really outstanding at. So they come and they compare their strength to all their competitors' weakness. And they naturally have an advantage. Plus, they want to work harder because they love what they do, because they're working in their area of strength. So you need to become a specialist and just specialize and focus on those things that you do so very well. So I have a challenge for you. I'm going to challenge you to discover exactly what you should be obsessing over. So here's the challenge. Make a list of your real-time activities for 1 week. And you can do that now, or you can keep a journal for a week to have greater accuracy. And I've actually developed a little bit of a tool that's going to help you to do this and to sort what you do into quadrants. So here's the exercise. I want you to write each of your regular weekly activities in one of these 4 boxes. And you might be able to just estimate them right now and write them in, or you might want to take this with you for a week and write them in real time. But here are the boxes. Box 1 is don't mind doing it, good at it. It's things that you're good at doing, you don't mind doing, you're fine with doing them, you're not especially amazing at it, but you're fine with it. Box number 2 is you love doing it, you're great at it. These are things that when you come home at the end of the day, you feel energized. Maybe you feel magnificent after you've done those tasks. Box number 3 are things that you don't love doing and you're really bad at doing those things. So make sure you fill out that box. And box number 4 are those things that you don't love doing, but you're good at them. We all have those things. You know, back to the old example of doing the schedule. Maybe you're good at it, but you really don't like doing it. So sort your activities into these 4 boxes. All of them will fit somewhere.